Welcome, welcome, Paralympic fans. It is day 5 here in a lovely sunny Beijing, but we need to keep it cool a little bit longer. We are back at the Ice Cube. This is normally the National Aquatic Centre, but for this week, we have frozen all the water and we are playing wheelchair curling here at Paralympic Winter Games. It is session 12 of the round-robin stage of the competition. We are deep into the round-robin. Points out there becoming very, very important for semi-final qualification. The team is being welcomed to the ice.
Ladies and gentlemen,
and today we have an all-Scandinavian affair. We're going to be watching Norway and Sweden. They're both doing pretty well in their campaign so far. 4 wins already for Norway, 5 for Sweden. The team's being welcomed by specially trained pipers and our very sweet little mascot. She seems to love her curling. That's Shui Ronron. So a Norway-Sweden encounter, always tasty in curling. These are 2 of the giants of curling, these nations. Let's say hi to our teams today. Lead thrower and flag bearer for the Norwegian team is Sisse Løchen. Second thrower for Norway, Geir Arne Skogstad. Third thrower for Norway and vice skip, Jostein Stordal. And fourth thrower and skip for Norway, Ole Fredrik Siversen. Lead thrower and also flag bearer for Team Sweden, Kristina Ullander. Second thrower for Sweden, Mats Ole Engborg. Third thrower for Sweden, Ronny Persson. Fourth and skip for Sweden, Viljo Pettersson Dahl. Norway wearing the red uniforms, they will be throwing red stones. Sweden wearing their familiar yellow, and they will be throwing yellow stones. Take a look at that for a round-robin table. Sweden, they are top of the pile with 1 game in hand even. They've won 5 out of their 6 games. Norway, they are very well placed in that chasing pack. They've played 7 games and won 4. Here's how Norway have been getting on so far. They had a bright start and then slipped a little bit. They have rearranged their lineup slightly. Ole Fredrik Siversen, he was throwing 3rd, and Jostein Stordal was throwing 4th, and they have switched places, and that seems to have worked for them. They've been getting back to winning ways. Sweden, on the other hand, gosh, very tidy set of results there. Very strong, consistent performance from that team. Just won that one loss to debutants Latvia. But Latvia also riding high in the table. Not at all intimidated by their first appearance here at Paralympic Winter Games. It will be Sweden who has last stone advantage in the first end. Norway will lead us off. It's getting pretty nice and sunny outside. Our ice makers will be working very hard to keep the conditions consistent here in the Ice Cube. We have 11 teams total in the round robin. Everyone plays everyone else, so every team will end up playing 10 games already. Typically the magic number would be 7. If you have 7 wins at least out of those 10, that's typically enough to qualify you for a semi-final. If you have 6 wins out of 10, that is often enough to qualify you for semi-final. If you have 5 wins out of the 10, that is often not enough. So every point now, every win, very important. Sisse Løchen of Norway starting us off in the first end on day 5 here in the Ice Cube in Beijing. The teams will be, all the teams will be getting stronger and stronger as the week goes on. There are 3 sessions every day, so the teams typically playing at least 1, if not 2 sessions every day. And just really getting used to this ice now, really feeling at home in this arena.
Bra där.
Sometimes it can be a little more difficult for the teams to, or it can take a little bit more time, let's say, for the teams to get used to an arena like this. Typically we play at the curling club where it's more like a closed room environment, and in the arena just the air currents can be a little bit different. The circulation can just affect the ice a little more, so sometimes it can take the teams a little while to settle into an arena ice instead of curling club ice. But 2 nice starts there, good first stones for both Norway and Sweden. A Norway-Sweden encounter is always one we look forward to. Both these countries, real stalwarts of curling in all disciplines. This Norwegian team, they picked up the silver medal last time in 2018 Paralympic Winter Games in Pyeongchang. I've actually not in this constellation before, but in 2014, 2010 and 2006 when wheelchair curling was first introduced, someone from this Norwegian team has represented Norway every single time. So a lot of experience out there with this Norwegian team. They would love to make semi-finals and have another pop at the gold medal match, I'm sure.
13-9. Bra linje.
But this Swedish team, golly, they are pretty up and coming. If we started last Paralympic Games in 2018, they finished 10th with the same team. And goodness me, have they built on that ever since. They were in the B division for World Wheelchair Championships. They won their way to the top division in 2020 and went all the way to the bronze medal in the World Championships 2020. They beat China. And they won silver in last year's World Wheelchair Championships, this Swedish team. So they are just making steady progress. And at the moment, the Swedish team top of the pile with a game in hand even. They're the first team to 5 wins and only 1 loss so far. Both of these teams will have ambitions for semi-final. Sweden have also been represented at every Paralympics since wheelchair curling was introduced in 2006. They have twice won a bronze, both in 2006 and 2010. Current lead thrower Kristina Olander, she was representing Sweden at with the team in 2014, where the Swedish team finished 7th. So both teams and both countries have really stellar pedigree in this event. So I expect this game will be a very close-fought affair. We could easily see a last stone win from either of these teams here. But that's a miss though from Norway. That thick red line, that's called the hog line. And all of the stone must be over all of the line for the stone to be in play. So our volunteer just removing that stone. We have a volunteer at either end for wheelchair curling to manage the stones, just to make it a bit simpler for the players. The volunteer at the throwing end, at this end, they will clean the underside of the stone and move the stone across for the player, and then the volunteer at the other end, they just make sure any stones that are out of play are tidied away safely at the back. Sweden with quite a statement of intent. Almost a double takeout on those two Norwegian stones there. Let's have another look at that. Really nice stuff from Sweden. It is Sweden who have last stone in this first end. They'll be keen to take advantage of that. Out of the box. First stone in the first end for Jostein Stordal. He has been the skip and throwing fourth at the beginning of the week, but they swapped themselves around. He's now throwing third, and that seems to have worked for them. Throwing fourth is difficult. It's not for everybody being a fourth thrower. It's not necessarily your best player that you have throwing fourth, although that certainly helps, but it's more important that the person throwing fourth doesn't let that pressure get to them. Fourth position, fourth thrower, you're the only one. There's nobody coming after you. All of positions 1, 2, 3.
You saw Niklas, va?
It's not great if you make a mistake, but there are stones coming after you, whereas position 4, buck stops there. And that's why it's difficult throwing fourth. It's not for everyone. It takes a particular kind of temperament. And for some people, there's maybe just too much pressure.
And that's okay,
they just don't throw well when they're throwing fourth and can be more comfortable in a different position.
8-4.
8-5. More stones than we sometimes see in a first end. We often see teams in all curling disciplines, actually. It's not unusual to see a conservative start in the first end, as the teams just get a feeling for the ice, feel how the ice is running, how fast the ice is running. That can change a little bit from day to day, and even from morning till evening in the same day. That's also what the pre-game practice is for. Before the game, both of the teams have a 9-minute practice. You can do whatever you want during that 9 minutes to just feel comfortable and get a feel for the ice. And at the conclusion of that 9-minute practice, both of the teams throw one clockwise curling stone, like the one we're watching now, and one anti-clockwise curling stone. And whichever team cumulatively gets their stones closer to the centre, pretty much like that. Whichever team cumulatively has a closer distance to the centre, they are the ones who have the choice for last stone at the first end. Technically, if you wish, you could decline last stone at the first end. That's your choice, but that would be tactically ridiculous. You would always want to have last stone advantage in the first end. So ahead of this game, it was Sweden who had the lower total distance from their two last shot draw stones.
8-6.
Bra försök. Bra Ronny.
Oh, that was not far from a double takeout for Ronny Persson. That pesky Norwegian stone, the red one on the left of our screen, just hanging on at the moment, and we might see that put a little bit of pressure on Sweden for their last stone at this end. Very early days, but in the first end, no score yet. So neither team needs to take risks, neither team needs to play very aggressively. And when you play very aggressive stuff, it's very much high risk, high reward. And that's often why we see a more conservative approach in that first end. If you take risks in that first end, and you're not quite so familiar with the ice yet, then sometimes, all you need is one mistake, really, and the whole end can suddenly turn into a nightmare. And that's why we often see a conservative approach to start with.
3-2.
Norway without last stone in this first end. Their objective is simply to keep a bit of pressure on Sweden. Don't let Sweden start building stones. Don't let Sweden score a bunch of points in this first end. And with his first throw, this first end. Skip and fourth thrower, Ole Fredrik Siversen. He can certainly add to that pressure for Sweden. This is looking nice. Important is simply that Norway now have 2 stones in the house, far away from each other. And at the moment, what that means is Sweden cannot afford to leave both of those Norwegian stones. But they also very, very difficult double takeout. You can see those stones are on opposite edges of the house there. That's what we call the rings. You'll hear curlers talking about the house. First stone of the game for Bileo Pettersen Dahl. Yeah, I think they weren't necessarily going for the double takeout. That's a very, very long and difficult double takeout, but he would have liked better if that yellow stone that he just threw, if that would hang around as well. Because now, I fancy we shall see a repeat of Ole Fredrik Siversen's first stone. Copy-paste, please.
Nej, vi drar dit. Jag går för 2. Vi drar dit.
Nå er det ikke så farlig å dra dit, så nå...
Nei.
Nå kan du ikke...
Bra.
Kan du ikke slå det langt.
Or actually, it looks more like they're playing the opposite handle. They're playing the clockwise handle this time.
3 blanka, greit det også. Ja.
They'll want a similar weight of the stone, though. That means how far the stone will travel. A heavy stone travels quickly and far, and a light stone travels a bit more slowly and not so far. So it looks like they're looking for the same weight, but maybe want to curl this stone in behind those guards out front, try to hide it from Sweden. This looks nice. Oh, it's run out of gas a little bit though. But actually, that's quite a good spot. Pretty difficult for Sweden to remove both of those reds.
Tar en Kiki.
Den.
Ja.
Ja. Vilken fart.
Vi kan nog spela 8 där.
8.
Ja.
Hur känns isen där då?
Ja.
Du ligger ute, Viljo. Bra.
Last stone of the first end for Sweden. Objective is met for Norway. They have limited Sweden.
Niklas, där.
Kom igen. Bra.
Maximum point Sweden can score here is 1.
Inne. Bra.
And Norway, they will probably can even score a red point here, but let's see.
Kom igen då.
Bra satt. 8-9.
It's pretty close, but I think that is 1 red scored.
Varför vill han inte bra?
Ja. 1 red.
The team's agreeing
1 red.
that is 1 point to red. Now you may have seen a non-wheelchair team, they may have chosen differently there. That's confirmation of 1 red to Norway. That's a stolen point. Norway steal 1 point in the first end because they didn't have last stone. And we call that stealing a point. So yeah, Norway, they'll be pretty happy with their start, but not much wrong with Sweden's start. Just that one, just a few centimetres missed by in the first. Confirmation. Norway steal a point in that first end. Norway lead Sweden 1-0. that previous shot in the first end there, we saw Pettersson Dahl going for the hit and roll. I think the idea was to just roll a little bit further into the rings and pick up a point there for Sweden. And in non-wheelchair curling, we might have seen a slightly different tactic. Let's say hello to Norwegian coach Peter Dahlman. He's actually a Swedish person, so it could be tough for him to coach the Norwegian team against his home country today. I'm sure he'll be very professional.
Bra! 14-9.
It's another nice start from both lead throwers there.
Ja. Och det känns som
Tissel
att jag trycker på den när
looking
jag drar
for
den av den
Norway
här.
and
Jag tror att
Kristina
den är
Olander
liksom...
for Sweden, and there's the Swedish coach. That's Alison Krevjatuk. She's originally Canadian, and now working with the Swedish Curling Federation, coaching their teams.
Ja.
We'll talk about the key differences at this level between wheelchair curling and non-wheelchair, and just sometimes that will occasionally result in a slightly different tactic or a slightly different shot selection. And that's probably what we saw in that first end. Pettersson Dahl, he had already played a takeout, so removing one of the Norwegian stones with his first shot.
Okej, typ 12-5. Bra.
And in wheelchair curling, it can be more difficult to get a perfect draw. That's a stone that will land in the rings in the house. And that's probably why we saw Pettersson Dahl select the takeout with his last stone in that first end. Whereas in non-wheelchair, we would probably have seen a team simply throw a draw instead.
Kanske lite tight.
Kändes lite tight, ja.
The first key difference we can see
Jag tror farten är bra annars. Det är lite
wheelchair
tight linje
curling
bara.
and non
Ja, bra.
is that there are no sweepers.
Farten är bra.
That's often the first thing that people think of when we mention curling, or if you're explaining curling, they say, oh yes, that's that sport on the ice with all the brushing, isn't it? And typically, yes it is. But in a wheelchair curling competition, there is no sweeping. And that just increases the level of difficulty for every shot really in wheelchair curling. If you watched the Olympics maybe a couple of weeks ago, or if you've seen curling before, you can see how often in non-wheelchair curling, you can see how often the sweeping is used, either to drag that stone a little further if the stone doesn't have quite enough beams on its own. Then a couple of strong sweepers can drag that stone a bit further, and they can also control the direction of the stone. You can sweep the ice to encourage the stone to stay a bit straighter, or if the stone's already caught a bit of curl, you can sweep the ice to encourage the stone to curl that way. So you can imagine if you don't have any sweepers, all of those options to adjust the stone after it's released, not available in wheelchair curling. The stone has to be perfect first time. So that's the biggest difference really between wheelchair curling and not, is that there's no sweeping. And that can make it difficult as well to get exactly the right angle on the stone. You can see also, if you maybe were watching the Olympic men's and ladies competitions, the angles on the stone is very important, not only to set up some angles, but also when you're hitting. Make sure you have the right angle on your stones, and that particularly difficult if you don't have sweepers available. But Norway at the moment not having much difficulty in the second end. They're really keeping that pressure on Sweden. 3 Norwegian stones all ahead of T-line. That's the horizontal line just underneath the Norwegian broom there. And that's the real critical area of the house to control. That's the important part of the rings, is just that area ahead of tee line. As you can imagine, any stone that's there, you can push one of those stones and it will get a little bit closer to the centre, whereas any stone already behind the tee line, if you push one of those stones, it will get further away. And that's why you'll see teams really trying to control that front of house area. And that's really the weight of the stone, so how far the stone travels, that's the weight you want to have in your pocket. Is front of house weight. But that stone just curled a little bit too much for Norway, and that could be the half stone, the half shot that Sweden needed to start tidying up this trouble here. It is Sweden with last stone in this second end, but they're not making a lot of progress taking advantage of that last stone at the moment.
7-6. Bra. Ligger bra där. Snyggt.
That's already better. That's a yellow, not only removing one of the Norwegian stones, but that's a yellow that Sweden could use later on in this end. If we punch that yellow back and try to punch it onto that red, remove some other stones.
Ja. Tror du klarer nå å tenne neste kølle mer, men vi prøver. Ja.
But Norway off to a really bright start here in this all-Scandinavian counter. They've had a more up and down week than Sweden so far. But these two teams, they will know each other pretty well. They've both been on the circuit for a few years now. And always, as far as I understand, a bit of a friendly rivalry between Norwegian and Swedish teams. They've just adjusted that line, Norway, and look at the improvement there. The first stone landed on the right side of the centre line as we see it, and that stone, that's exactly where they wanted it to land, on the left. Right in front of that dangerous yellow. And that really blocks access for Sweden to that dangerous yellow. However, there could be another way to access both of those reds. On the clockwise handle, let's see from Ronnie Persson, his first throw in this second end.
Jag tycker den är lite tight igen, Ronny. Ja. 7-8.
So he gets one of them. It sounded like that was just a little bit tight, that stone. What that means is that it was just a little bit inside of the brush, between the brush and the stone. And that means it curled a little bit too much. If that stone had curled a little bit less, he could have bounced off that first red stone and sprung across to get the second red stone. That was the perfect shot. So Sweden making progress, but still work to do for Sweden to make efficient use of last stone in this second end. Norway, I think, will still be the happier at the moment with how the second end is going for them.
Ja. Bra, Jostein.
8-8.
That's good work there from third thrower Jostein Stordal. Objective for Norway, pretty similar in the second end as it was in the first end. It is Sweden who have the last stone, and Norway, they're already +1. Norway doesn't need to score points in this end, it's only the second end, they're +1 shot. Their objective is to simply frustrate Sweden, just make sure Sweden are not getting opportunities to score, and that's exactly what they're doing very nicely so far.
Bra.
Deep breath from Ronnie Persson. Gives that a huge shove. Remember also the wheelchair curlers.
7-8.
It's only upper body strength that they're using. In non-wheelchair curling, we would be driving out of the hat using leg drive. So all of the power for a stone in non-wheelchair curling is coming from the legs, but in wheelchair curling, all of that power has to come from upper body strength only. And that's another added degree of difficulty for any stone in wheelchair curling is, first of all, nobody's sweeping your stone once you've released it, and also all of your power is coming from upper body. And you can imagine, tough to keep going with these big shots, like big heavy stones traveling very quickly. Tough to keep doing that end after end, fully with upper body strength. But that aspect of the game, that's certainly the one that has improved the most over the past, say, 6 or 7 years or so. Team from China are also playing at the moment. That's our local fans appreciating their efforts. And our featured game here, Norway playing Sweden. Norway setting this end up really nicely for themselves. Sweden not quite managing to clear themselves a space, and Norway quite happy to keep piling stones towards the centre. That stone in the white circle, that's the 8-foot circle. That stone may not score a point for Norway. They don't need it to. What that red stone there is doing, again, it's keeping pressure on Sweden. It's making sure that Sweden are not controlling this end. Sweden are not able to set up points, to set up a big end here. Curling, of course, coming from Scotland hundreds of years ago, long before the metric system was invented. And for convenience, you will still hear all curlers, really, whether they're from a fully metric country or not, all curlers will still refer to the 12-foot circle. That's the widest, the blue one. The 8-foot circle is the white one, and the all-important 4-foot circle is the red one. So even though both Sweden and Norway are fully metric countries, you may still hear them talking about putting the brush at, say, the edge of the 8-foot, or aiming a stone top of the 4-foot. It's just a convenient way of describing where they want the stone to end up. And that's actually okay for Sweden. He has moved also his own stone there. You can see that Swedish stone now on the left of our screen, but what, importantly, Pettersson Dahl has done with his first shot is open up that anti-clockwise handle. You can see all of the space on the left side now of the centre line. All of that space is now clear for his final shot. And that was the objective for that stone. No real opportunity at the moment for Sweden to score 2 points here, but important that they can score 1. They don't really want Norway to steal another point. Norway doesn't have last stone here.
Ja.
Two options for, well, two obvious options for Norway here with their last stone in second end. One stone to come afterwards still from Sweden. They could do something similar as they did with Ole Fredrik Siverson's first stone. They could play towards the centre there, protect that red stone that's in the 8-foot circle, the white one. Looks like that's what they're doing. They've just played that stone, so they should know this path. They should know the weight needed for this stone here. I think they might even get a little bonus. Oh, not quite. I wondered if they were going to lie actually 2 Norwegian stones. That's a nice aggressive stone. The other idea would be more defensive. That would be to simply remove that Swedish stone on the left of our screen, on the edge of the rings there. That would be the other option. Just make absolutely sure Sweden have no opportunity to score more than 1 point. But we always like to see the aggressive shot in curling.
13, okay. Kom in.
Ligger lite inne. Bra där. Jag tror att du kan tänka 13.
Doesn't particularly change what Sweden have to do.
Ja, det tror jag också.
Sweden
Det är bra. Kom igen.
still have to
Lite
draw
ute.
better than the current shot stone, which is the Norwegian stone in the 8 foot. So important shot here
Bra
for
satt.
Riljo Pettersen Dahl. It's coming in nicely. That's a great shot.
Bra Vilja.
That really is good. Again, it's hard to overstate how difficult it is to land exactly in the 4 foot when you don't have any sweepers to help you. Once you've released that stone, it has to be perfect. And really great stuff. That steadies the ship for Sweden. Bit of a tricky end there. Good end played from Norway, and that was well done by Sweden to pick up 1 point. The score after 2 ends, 1 shot each. There's our game summary. I think we've seen that reflected in the game. The score is 1 shot each, but so far it's really Norway who've jumped out the blocks a little bit more confidently. Sweden really having to save that second end, and Norway stealing a point in the first end. Our overall score after 2 ends is 1 shot each.
Jag tror att jag kan spela den här lite hårdare, för jag tror att den här är lite tung.
Ja, gör det. Ute. Bra.
Third end here
Kändes bra.
in our featured game. Norway playing Sweden. For the first time in the game, it is Norway who now have last stone advantage in the third end.
12-3.
And Sweden, they will be looking to reverse the strategy that Norway was using against them. Norway very effective in those first 2 ends. No chance for Sweden to score more than 1 point with that last stone advantage. Norway will be very happy with how this important game's going so far. 11 teams in the round robin. Everyone plays everyone else. So each team will play 10 games. Typically the magic number is 7. If you win 7 out of your 10 games, that will typically be enough to qualify you for semi-final stage. The top 4 teams will qualify for semi-finals. And typically 7 out of 10 will be enough. 6 out of 10 can be enough. 5 out of 10, rarely enough. Sweden already on 5 wins and 1 loss. Norway on 4 wins and 3 losses. So there's a big point out there. If Sweden can grab a win at this game, they are all but qualifying themselves for semi-finals. And not quite a must-win game for Norway, but Norway will be very keen to get another couple of points on the board and try and get themselves closer to semi-final qualification. We're at the stage in the round robin where really every point has, or rather every point is very meaningful in terms of next stages of the competition. And this is better from Sweden. We will see a reverse of tactics here. Typically the team that has last stone, they will play away from the centre. And we saw that with Sissel Løken's first stone. And the team who doesn't have last stone, they will play towards the centre. And that's fine from Sissel Løken. Perfect would be if that stone curled a little bit less. And she would roll the other way. She was ideally trying to hit and roll behind that red guard she threw with her first shot. But that works too.
Bra. Kom igen.
Now, viewers, you will hear curlers going on and on about scoring 2 points, 2 or more points with that last stone advantage. And why is it so much, or what's the big difference between scoring 1 point with last stone advantage and scoring 2 or more? And there is a huge difference.
12, 7.
That is because you have one chance with your one last stone to make 1 point.
Yeah.
And as we saw in the second end, Sweden were trying to set something else up. They were trying to put up some guards, maybe trying to put stones in behind. But finally, not really managing to build anything there. But with Pettersendal's last stone, he was able to score 1 point. And we can think of that as kind of the default at this level, where you won't see too many mistakes. Your one chance with your one last stone, it's relatively straightforward to score 1 point. So if you do that, then the opposition has last stone. And it's relatively straightforward for them to score 1 point. And if you do that for 8 ends, you will end up with a score of 4 points each. Therefore, if you want to win the game, then at least sometimes you have to score more than 1 point when you have last stone advantage. You have to mix it up a bit. You have to be more aggressive, take more risks. You need to get mistakes from your opposition so that you then have the chance to score more than 1 point. And that's exactly what Norway were doing to Sweden for the first 2 ends. They were not letting Sweden have a chance to score more than 1 point, and that's why Norway will be very pleased with how those first 2 ends have gone for them. They were forcing Sweden to either lose a point, in fact, in the first end, or only being able to score 1 point in that second end. So those two, the first 2 ends, really good strategically for Norway. They'll be happy. Because so far, Sweden not managed to set up themselves a chance to do better than that default, to do better than scoring 1 point with last stone advantage. Now, this is exactly what we will see Norway doing. They could simply remove that Swedish stone. That's an easy shot for them. And they're not going to do that. Let's see what they do. We can see that stone curling anti-clockwise. It's going away from that Swedish stone. And it's a bit shorter than they wanted. What Norway wanted was to swing that stone in behind that guard. Geir Anders Skogstad. A little bit disappointed with that, but that's still a stone Norway can use. If that stone was too heavy, if that stone had gone all the way through and out the back, then the stone's useless. It's out of play. You can't use it now. But better short than long as a plan B for that Norwegian stone. Both of those red stones out front there, they're both stones that Norway can still use, either to come and hide behind, or you could punch one of those stones forward into the rings. This is good to see from Sweden. This is the aggressive call. Again, Sweden had a couple of options here.
13-3 då nu.
They could also have just removed those Norwegian stones. If Sweden would remove those Norwegian stones, then there's no cover for Norway. It would be difficult for Norway to hide stones in the house, try to get that mistake from Sweden. So that's nice to see from Sweden. Instead of doing the defensive thing, instead of removing those guards, removing the options for Norway, they've made more options for themselves. They've put a second Swedish counter in the rings, and that will keep Norway busy for a little bit. Norway have to do something about that stone, and that doesn't give Norway a chance to start building their own stones, to start putting reds in the house. They have to deal with those yellows first. So it's good to see that nice aggressive strategy from Sweden. Always more interesting for us viewers. Oh, very close for Norwegian third thrower Jostein Stjørdal, close to getting both of those Swedish stones moving. He either wanted a little bit more or a little bit less curl. Just catch the angle a little bit differently. And at the moment then, Sweden are managing to frustrate Norway. Remember, Norway have, for the first time in the game, Norway have last stone advantage in this third end. And Sweden, they want to completely reverse tactics. They now want to frustrate Norway. They want to make sure Norway are not scoring more than that default 1 point with their one last stone. And this looks nice. Has it sneaked itself around the guard? Not quite. But that's a dangerous stone now for Sweden again. That's a stone Sweden can hide behind, or Sweden can punch forward a little bit into the rings. So that's found a good spot there, the shot from Ronnie Persson. Interesting here, Norway have switched it up a bit. They were favouring the more aggressive tactic, but now they're doing the more defensive one and removing that Swedish stone. And I wonder if that might cost them, because now that Norway rolled out there, that Norwegian stone didn't hit and sit. Now we will see Sweden playing an aggressive stone. And that shot there may cost Norway a chance to score big in this third end with their last stone.
Ligger lite ute. Bra.
Skip stones in this third end. First throw for Vilo Pettersson-Dahl of Sweden. Now Sweden who want to try to get a stone into the rings, or as you can see, you could try and punch that yellow forward. He's saying, yeah, it's a nice line. The direction of the stone was good, but ran out of beans to punch that yellow forward. But again, that stone is no use through the back. Better to have stones out front that Sweden can still use.
Dragning.
Ja.
Ja. Tre blank.
Ja.
Tre blank og sitter bra bak.
If Norway do want to score 2 points with their last stone advantage, this has to be a good one. That's why those stones out front are important. If Norway can sneak a stone around the back of those stones out front, they will make it difficult for Sweden to remove. And if they can get a mistake from Sweden, that's when they'll have a chance to score 2 points.
Ja.
Ja.
This is looking nice. This is looking really nice. And that switch in position seems to be working for Norway. That's a lovely stone from Ole Fredrik Siversen. Really good stuff from him. That Norwegian stone buried in behind there, yeah, I think Sweden can only see an edge of that red. Difficult for Sweden to remove, and that's what you have to do. If you want to score that all-important 2 or more points with last stone, you have to set a trap for your opposition. You have to make it hard for them
Testa
to make
tagen på
shots.
den!
Bra!
Det tycker jag. Då hinner vi få lite...
You have to get a mistake from your opposition. So
Tage där, eller?
the tougher you can make your opposition shot, the more likely you are to get a
Bra.
mistake from them, and the more likely you are to be able to have a chance to score more than 1 point.
Kom igen.
Looks like Sweden are going for this. I think they can see an edge of that red stone, but not very much. So this is a very difficult shot for Viljo Pettersson Dahl.
Bra.
He has to get the curl just perfect. Without any sweepers, remember. Very tough shot. That hasn't caught a curl yet.
Niklas 6.
Just at the end, it's got a curl. Has it punched it enough?
Bra försök.
Not
Bra.
quite. And Sweden have fallen into the trap set by Norway. They did make contact with that red stone, but as you can see, that was very difficult to remove that red. There was a long way to punch that red out. And Norway do have their opportunity to score a big 2 points in this third end.
Samma steg.
Jag lägger på 10. Ja.
Silver medalists from last time, this Norwegian team. Last one for Norway. They've done the hard work. They set the trap. They got a mistake from Sweden. Now they have to finish it off with same kind of shot they played last time. Well, that one needs to stop. Quick, someone put a patch of Velcro down, and it does. A relieved little chuckle from Norway, but well-deserved 2 there for Norway. Well-worked end for them, and they continue to have a real bright start in this first half of the game. Norway scoring a big 2 in the third end. They lead Sweden 3 shots to 1.
Snygga dragningar, Ronny. En bra 13-fart där. 88.
Ja, så det var 2-7 nå?
Ja, det får ge den lite extra. Framförallt om där är det.
There's our overall game summary. That's exactly what we're seeing out in the ice there. Norway having a real bright start today in their game against Sweden, really jumping out the blocks there, accuracy ahead of Sweden comprehensively just now, and that reflected in a nice strong score for Norway. They lead Sweden 3 shots to 1. We're in the 4th end of this 8-end game. Lead thrower and flag bearer for the Norwegian Paralympic Winter Games team. Sissel Løken. She has that very distinctive delivery. Sissel Løken, she is the only player in the draw that her delivery is central. So instead of describing her as right or left-handed, she is described as both. She has that very distinctive delivery, and clearly it works for her. Very successful, this Norwegian team, very consistent. Consistency, very much more desirable than style in curling. You don't have to look beautiful when you're throwing. More important is you do the same thing consistently every time. And Sissel Løken having a really strong game for Norway at the moment. She's a huge part of why Norway are really on top of this game in the first half. It's an 8-end game. So after this 4th end, we will have a half-time pause. And that's a particularly nice shot there from Kristina Ullander. You can see that yellow stone is now not in the rings. It's not in the house. Siversen just having a little look at it. And what that means is that yellow stone is currently protected by free guard zone. All of that white area outside of the rings And in front of T-line, all of that area is called the free guard zone, and the opposition cannot remove your stone from that area. You can move it around, but it cannot go out of play until we have played 5 stones. So that's a particularly nice shot from Christina Ullander, removing the Norwegian stone and landing in the free guard zone. But Cecil looking relentless out there today. She's just snuck a stone in right behind that. She can't remove that yellow stone from play, but sneaked another red in behind it. And as we've seen quite a few times in this wheelchair curling competition, it's a different rhythm compared with non-wheelchair, and stones that may not be a problem in non-wheelchair curling, they can prove to be pretty important in the wheelchair event. The level of difficulty for each stone in wheelchair curling just that bit higher, because there's nobody sweeping your stones and you're using only that upper body strength. And Christina Ullander, flag bearer for the Swedish team in the opening ceremony, she making it look pretty easy out there. Nice stuff from her. It is Sweden who have last stone advantage in this 4th end. So objectives and tactics have reversed again. It is again Norway who will be wanting to frustrate Sweden. They want to make sure that Sweden cannot score more than that default 1 point with last stone. And conversely, Sweden with a bit of work to do here. They're a couple points behind Norway. Norway playing very nicely right now. And Sweden, they'll be wanting to work very hard to try to grab a couple of points, and that could help them. That red over curling there. I think the weight looked quite okay, but that red, that was just supposed to sit in front of the yellow. Again, Norway plus 2 shots already. Their objective is simply to frustrate Sweden, to stop Sweden being able to score. So even if that red would just sit in front of the Swedish yellow, Norway quite happy if Sweden can score 1 point. They don't mind giving up 1 point to Sweden in this end, but they don't want to give up more than that. But that was a mistake there from Norway, and Sweden need to capitalise on that if they want to grab that couple of shots deficit back. Keep going, they say, keep going, and that's really nice. That's a very nice stone. That just neutralises that Norwegian stone at the back there. And Sweden are currently line 2.
Vi kan prøve å dra. Men spørsmålet er hvor lenge vi kan vente med å rydde opp I så fall.
Ja, men det det jeg spør om. Vil du slå?
Vil du dra?
Så jeg får en frys på den gule, så
Ja,
så det greit.
han må ned. Du har den som backing.
Ja. 3 blank.
3 blank.
3 blank.
Important shot here for Norway.
Nå.
Sweden are lying 2 shots at the moment. Second thrower, Geert Arne Skogstad.
Ja.
He wants to try to neutralise at least one of those stones. The way looks really nice for this stone. He's round the guards. And that's found a good spot for Geert Arne Skogstad.
Yep.
He was a little unlucky that just bounced back towards the centre, his stone there. But you can see the way the angles are set up. It could be difficult for Sweden to completely remove that red. It's partially hidden behind the stones at the front, And the way the angles are set up, it would be quite easy to just squirt that red straight back onto that yellow, and suddenly the red goes nowhere. So
Bra.
that was a decent result for Geir Arne Skogstad of Norway.
Kändes bra, Moe. Tyckte du satte den bra?
Lite lös kanske.
Tagen
Taget.
ja.
There we
Ja,
are.
det är okej
The guard
där.
did its job
Ja.
there, but
Ja, det är bra.
Nej, du satte den bra, Moe.
just
Curlar
get-
väldigt mycket.
a little bonus springing another Swedish counter into the 8-foot circle, the white one. So that Norwegian stone right on top of the logo.
Ja.
It's getting a little bit low in the end there, quite vulnerable. Swedish stone starting to pile up around the centre.
Bra.
Norway rather committed to the aggressive end now.
Det är blank.
Difficult for Norway to switch up and start removing Swedish stones at this stage in the end. I think they're going to have to just stick with the aggressive tactics, stick with outdrawing Swedish stones, just being closer to the middle or neutralising those Swedish stones.
Ja.
Jostein Stordal having a pretty tight game so far.
En 8.
And that's a big mistake for Norway. That was
Känner
not the
du
tolerance
Niklas,
for that
eller?
shot. That shot
Ja,
is
bra.
sailing through the whole house. We can't use that stone anymore. That shot, the tolerance for that shot was better short than long. You can imagine even if that stone had stopped in front of the house, it would have blocked a little bit this path that Sweden are now going to use. And gosh, Norway could pay big for that one.
Kändes lite tajt i linjen.
Okej.
8-3.
8-5.
Ja, men det är bra då.
Bra Ronny.
Det är okej.
And indeed, that Norwegian stone, it was getting vulnerable in there, and now it's gone. Sweden,
Tre bra.
Det är bra. Det. Kom ihåg
they
det
are
som vi
lying
pratade om.
3.
Tryck inte. Måste tänka.
Ja.
Det bättre ut.
So Norway committed to the best defence being better offence. They need to land some good shots here to prevent Sweden being able to score here. That's a pretty nice effort. That cancels out 2 of the Swedish stones. And it's nestled in amongst the pile there and could be difficult for Sweden to move. You can see that first Swedish stone, the one in the 4-foot, the red circle.
För du ser inte mycket, va?
Quite difficult to do anything about that one.
10%.
Dra.
Tänker 13 då.
Ja.
Bra.
Kom igen. Hoppa lite. Ja, hoppa. Bra.
Ronnie Persson
Bra
being asked
där.
to follow that same path from that Norway just used.
Satte den bra. Sakta ner.
This one's coming in chunky.
Tage 7.
Tage 8.
Oh, that was a bit wild.
Ja, den var väldigt bra.
Ja, det var...
Vi gillar bra.
Nej.
Ja, där fick.
Ja.
Nice shot here, and Norway may be able to do enough to frustrate Sweden's plans in this end. Sweden have the last stone in the 4th end here.
Jeg synes de dytter den bare litt. Ja, men de må dytte den dit, tror jeg. Det er bra.
Tre blank.
Det er bra.
Tre blank, Ole.
Har det.
Det mer is enn jeg har satt opp det der. Jeg hadde kant, ja.
OK.
Ja.
Skip stones then in this fourth end of our featured game. All Scandinavian affair. Always a fun one. Look at those numbers for Ollie Fredrik Siversen. He is frustrating Sweden all by himself, just about.
Ja,
Ja,
And
Ska vi ha lite mer?
Ta lite mer.
that's fine, actually. That's
think
that
it is.
again. That's found a good spot. That stone was no use if it was through the back, if it was too heavy, if it was too long.
4-2.
And that certainly blocked that path that we've been seeing the stones travelling. So Sweden will have to take a different path to get a second stone
Japp.
closest to
Lite
the
ut
centre
där.
from
Bra.
here.
Kom igen, den har du. Hela vägen.
Bra! Ja då. Den är bra satt.
So a slightly new path the stone's travelling now, thanks to that Norwegian guard out front.
12-4!
Lite mycket is på den då.
I think that path good, but just that stone a bit heavy.
Lite svårt. 12-4.
The heavier the stone is, the less it will curl. And that stone just curling a little bit too late.
Ja, men vi ökar.
And that gives Norway then
Ja,
the
4
chance to
igjen
try
med
that
andre.
same path.
Den
3 ned. Ja, det er 3 blank.
Ta blank.
Ja.
Sweden still lying one.
3-2 cirka.
Ja.
As we said in our Tactics 101 discussion, you're not going to win games if you only manage to score 1 point with your one last stone. And Norway currently
Ja, det
doing a
den
good
her,
job
så.
of frustrating Sweden's plans here.
Eller?
Well, this is definitely not too heavy
Get
for
it
Norway,
there.
but I think it's too
All right.
light, and it is going to just curl away over the line. So a let off for Sweden there.
Vill du ha samma?
Sweden have
Bra!
Lite lösare.
the whole of the clockwise handle. You can see the whole of the right of the centre line there, completely free. Plenty of space for Sweden to have a second try at this shot. So he just threw this with his first stone, Viljo Pettersson. He'll make that adjustment. He'll take a bit of the weight off, we'll say. A little bit less weight on this stone.
Bra satt!
So this stone has to land closer to the centre than that Norwegian stone.
12-8!
We just saw him do it in the second end. He played a corker. And this looks pretty nice again.
Bra Viljo!
I think he's done enough there. Really nice stone again from Viljo Pettersson.
Yellow. Yes, 2 yellow.
And the teams agreed it is 2 yellow points. And a big score of 2 there for Sweden. Lots of stones in play, an aggressive end.
Nei, dere er fargeblind. Tore.
Sweden definitely picking up their accuracy here in that fourth end. Norway
Den går
committed to being out aggressive rather than being defensive in that fourth end. And Sweden rewarded for their persistence. They score a big 2, and that levels the score at half-time. 3 shots all. Our local fans enjoying their curling. No foreign fans at these Paralympic Winter Games this time, but local fans enjoying cheering for their team as well. There's our overall game summary. Norway's numbers pretty consistent, getting better all the time in this week. And Norway probably the better of the first half, but let's see what their coach has to say at half-time.
Jag vet inte om vi skulle... På sätten om vi skulle ha gått på garderna här. Och det låg med en eller två låg det där.
Ja, det var ju så. Men jag syns det var en bra call där och då. Så att, och gå in.
And there's the numbers for Sweden. Definitely a bit slower to start, and their numbers still climbing, not quite reaching their tournament average, which has been very strong so far, but mounting a good comeback in that fourth end. Let's see what their coach has to offer at halftime.
Det är tungt när vi tar poäng och vill slå med första sten.
Ja, nej, men det är bra. Du gör bra. Ja då.
Ja, men 8 är väl inte så bra.
Nej. Ja, du gör det bra då.
Ja, absolut.
Ja, men fortsätt jobba på nu. Nu är det våran andra. De har fått första halvan lite. Nu tar vi tillbaka och sen är det våran.
Du stuttade väst.
There's the overall summary. And scores tied, 3 points each at the half-time, but definitely Norway still a little bit ahead there of Sweden, just making slightly more shots, but an important last stone from Pettersson Dahl in that fourth end to level the scores.
Väldigt bra.
Ja. Ser du på folkens?
Det är bra skippat, det är bra spel. Ja.
Ja, vi har haft en sista dragning, men det
är som det är.
Jo, vi ska på det. 1, 2, 3. Oj!
Ja, du var fin eller den sista.
Norway, I'm sure they just want to really keep doing what they're doing.
35.
They're the ones that have been managing to put the pressure on. Sweden, an important score for them in that fourth end, but they will want to just tighten up a little bit. They're not quite stringing 8 out of 8 shots together yet.
Okej.
Ja.
Bra Kiki, vi drar in!
Ja.
And it will be Sweden who start us off in the fifth end in the second half of this game. It is Norway who have last stone advantage in the fifth end.
3.
Hur mycket ska du ha?
Ja, där.
När du vill.
Ute på 6.
Bra!
Kändes bra.
Christina Ullander doing a good job setting Sweden up with her first 2 stones.
Det ser bra ut.
Ser bra ut. Kändes bra.
12-8.
Sweden struggling a little bit though to then consolidate their position.
Bra Kiki.
Perfect.
After Ullander's first couple of stones. That's another nice start for her. Now, 2 options for Norway here. They can be defensive or aggressive, and we've seen them be aggressive all game so far. Sissel Luken having a really strong tournament and a really strong game. And this stone looks like it's going to just slip into the house as well.
The 3.
Norway probably wanted that stone just a little bit shorter, so that stone out of the rings, more like a guard.
Kom igen. Sträck ut.
Like we said in the first half.
Kom igen.
Big difference at this early stage of the end. Big difference between a stone landing in the house, in the rings, and a stone landing in front of the rings. That stone from Sissel Luken is not protected by free guard zone. Sweden can remove it.
Ja, jag tycker du satte den bra.
And that's exactly what they do.
Ja, okej.
Eller vil jeg dra corneren?
Nei, jeg kan ta den, du.
This Norwegian team, silver medalists at the last Paralympic Winter Games in Pyeongchang in Korea. They lost out to China that time. Very consistent performances in Paralympic Winter Games, the Norwegians. At least one of the current team on the ice, at least one of those players has represented Norway at every Paralympic Games since wheelchair curling was introduced in 2006.
Bra.
So Mats Ola Enberg. Sweden need him to really start consolidating their position in the end. Christina Ulander setting up nice stones. But Sweden struggling a little bit in the first half of the game to really consolidate that and start putting the pressure on Norway, but that's a bit better. Either way, even if that stone had slipped into the rings, it looks like Norway have bailed out this end already and are going to play the defensive strategy from here. But if they can get a mistake from Norway, and that means if Norway doesn't manage to fully clear this guard, that could be a chance for Sweden. But Norway not only cleared the guard, but they get a very nice roll as well. Remember, if you don't have last stone, you typically play towards the centre to try to frustrate your opposition, not give them space to score. Therefore, if you do have last stone, at least at the start of the end, the beginning of the end, you typically play away from the centre. Also to keep your opposition busy away from the centre so that they don't start blocking the centre, and that's exactly what Norway have done with that lovely hit and roll. But neutralised by Sweden. Not quite removing their own stone as well, not quite rolling out, but you can see that yellow stone covering none of the house. And not particularly useful for Norway. There, that yellow stone in front of basically nothing. That not really a stone Norway can use anymore. We also fairly often see a conservative strategy in the fifth end. After being off the ice for 5 minutes, the ice can just change ever so slightly. And you don't want to come on after half-time and immediately get into a pickle because the ice conditions have maybe changed a bit. So not so unusual to, again, see a conservative strategy just after half-time.
Yes, yes. Niklas. Come here, Niklas. Träd in.
Lite där. Bra.
Ronnie Persson throwing not quite as strongly as he has been earlier on in the week, and again he will really want to just tighten up those shots, try to use that nice setup that Sweden have been getting with their first stones in the end, and try to put a bit more pressure on Norway with their middle order. Norway switching positions with their back end. The man on your screen, Jostein Stordal, he was playing fourth and skipping the team earlier in the week. And he has switched positions with Ole Fredrik Siversen and seems to be really working for them. They've won their previous 2 games. And yeah, that's Stone just finding a nice place at front of house.
Okej.
Bra.
Du kan ta 8 om du vill.
Ja, kör 8 då.
Bra.
Bra.
8.
Bra.
And as we said, we quite often see conservative tactics here in the 5th end, and indeed Sweden not messing about. They don't want to take a chance in this 5th end, nor is Norway, who has last stone advantage. And no need for Sweden to take risks here. Scores are tied. Definitely the safer and wise option to just remove that Norwegian stone. And that is going to hang around for Ronnie Persson. And certainly forcing Norway to make a decision. Not really many options. If Norway did want to try to score that all-important 2 with last stone advantage in this 5th end, not really any option for them at the moment. They could potentially use that yellow on the far left of our screen, but tricky stuff. And again, Norway also don't need to take big risks at the moment. Scores are tied. But having said that, that is a bit of a mistake though from Norway. The first mistake from them in this end. And that plays into Sweden's strategy. Sweden's objective for this end is to prevent Norway scoring big. Norway with last stone. Scores are tied. Norway would want to score that all-important 2 or more points with the last stone advantage. Sweden don't need to make points themselves this end. Scores are tied, so their objective is simply to frustrate Norway. Don't let Norway score 2. And they have a chance here to put some pressure on and really could prevent Norway scoring more than 1 here. They might even have to, they might force Norway that Norway have to score 1 point here. Yeah, this is nice from Viljo Pettersson. His number is lower than I would have expected. It's not we here in the commentary box who do the statistics for the stone. His accuracy number is a little bit lower, but that's perfect. Those 2 yellows exactly level, and that means that no double takeout possible for Norway.
Oj. Enklare fort. 9-8.
9-5.
No mistake with that one for Ole Fredrik Siversen. But if Sweden can make a fairly similar shot here, then they will have met their objective for the 5th end.
13-4 på förra. 13. Lite ute. Ja.
So he's just thrown this shot. Copy paste please from Viljo Pettersson. We've seen him make several really nice draws already today.
13-4. Bra Viljo.
This looks nice again. It's again exactly level. No double takeout possible for Norway. And this situation we now describe, Norway are forced to score 1 point here. They have to do something because Sweden are lying currently 2 points. But as we said, Norway can only score maximum 1 point here, and you don't win games by scoring only 1 point with last stone. So that is objective met for Norway, and objective met for Sweden, and oh my goodness, that is a mistake from Norway. That stone hugely over curling. And what a shift in momentum we see in this game. Norway definitely keeping the pressure on in that first half of the game, but whatever the Swedish coach has said at half-time has had a happy effect. Sweden stealing 2, scoring 2 without last stone even, and they are now leading Norway 5 shots to 3. Confirmation of our overall game statistics. Norway's percentage for accuracy just slipping down a little bit, and in contrast, Sweden's starting to move in the right direction. And Sweden getting a huge score of 2 there. Just that one mistake from Norway, but those 2 Swedish stones hanging around, putting pressure on that Norwegian final shot and getting the reward. They lead Norway 5 shots to 3.
Lite tight, ja.
We are in the all-important 6th end in our all-Scandinavian encounter. We are watching Team Norway, silver medalists from last time. They are playing very up-and-coming team from Sweden. This Norwegian team, heaps of experience for all of the 4 players out in the ice. At least one of those 4 players has represented Norway at every single Paralympic Winter Games since wheelchair curling was introduced in 2006. But the Swedish team, not intimidated. The Swedish team have just step by step, gradually worked their way up to be one of the top teams in the world now. Both of these teams would really fancy qualifying for semi-finals later on this week. We have 11 teams in this round-robin section of the wheelchair curling competition. Everybody plays everyone else for a total of 10 games. The magic number is typically 7 out of 10 wins will qualify you for semi-finals. The top 4 teams go to semi-finals directly. 7 out of 10 almost always will qualify you. 6 out of 10 sometimes will qualify. 5 out of 10 rarely will qualify for semi-finals. So all to play for. We're at the stage in the round robin where really every win is very meaningful. There are a couple of teams who can no longer qualify for semi-finals, but the 2 on our screen, both will still have high hopes of reaching the knockout stages. Sweden are on 5 wins and 1 loss. Norway on 4 wins and 3 losses. Oh, no. Is that stone counting? If any part of that stone is touching the rings, that counts.
Ja.
Hamnade här är också jättebra.
Ja.
12-5-13. 12-5-13.
Ja.
12-8.
Norway again with last stone advantage in the 6th end, and they will be really needing to pull out some aggressive stones now. 3 ends left, including this one. We play 8 ends in wheelchair curling. if shots are tied, we will play extra ends as needed.
12, 6. Det är jättefin fart. Bra.
Norway would love to grab that 2-point deficit back right away. That's good stuff though from Mats-Olle Engborg.
Bra.
He had a bit of a slower start to his game, but his numbers heading in the right direction now. But the good news for Norway is that both of those Swedish stones are behind T-line. That's the horizontal line. And that gives a little bit of backing for Norwegian stones to freeze against, to sit against.
Very hard. Sorry.
Well, not like that, they won't. That's a big mistake in the 6th end.
Bra, en till. Samma fina. 12-8 hade jag. 13.
Samma fina, lite nättare bara.
Big momentum shift in this game. It was definitely Norway who were keeping the pressure on in the first half. Sweden having definitely a slower start to this game.
Bra.
But not panicking. Just sometimes you have to do that. You just have to stay patient.
Tight. Lite tajtare, ja.
Keep focused, keep positive, keep looking forward. Nobody became a terrible player overnight, and you just have to keep focused stone by stone. And that is a bit of a mistake from Sweden now. A let off for Norway, because now Norway have a few guards out front, and still both those Swedish stones are behind T-line. And that means there is space to come around those guards and land a Norwegian stone maybe just in front of one of those Swedish counters, and you will be closer to the centre with a bit of backing. Make it hard for Sweden to do something about it. This looks better. This is nicer from Skogstad. That's more like it. That's a lovely stone. You can see that red definitely closest to the centre, right in behind both of those guards out front.
13 fart här.
Really nice stone there from Anders Skogstad.
13 bara.
Little option for Sweden.
Vi kan jobba med allt här, Ronny.
They want to land just where Petter Sandal is indicating with his brush.
Bra.
That's not what Sweden wanted. Guards are helping Norway. That just gives Norway more stuff to hide behind. So Norway, they make a nice shot here. They're in a good position to grab those 2 points straight back again in this 6th end. First throw in this all-important 6th end for Jostein Stjørdal. This looks nice again from Norway. This looks really nice. That's superb from Norway. Really taking advantage of that mistake from Sweden.
Delar vi upp den är bra också.
Bra snackat.
Fler är fint med.
Jostein Stjørdal outshooting Ronnie Persson in this game.
eller ska man gå på clearen direkt?
The Swedish middle order not quite firing consistently, but Viljo Pettersson-Dahl's played a few real peachy shots at critical times.
Ja, jag med.
Bra där!
Kändes okej.
Ja då. Ja, det är okej då nu.
That idea, a little bit of a Hail Mary, honestly, for Sweden. Typically, without last stone. That's Sweden's situation. Sweden don't have last stone in the sixth end, and typically you quite like to have guards around the centre. And that's always a bit frustrating when the usual tried and trusted tactic is just backfiring, and you really have to start moving centre guards, because Norway has really beaten you to that top of the 4 foot area. The 4 foot's the white circle, sorry, the red circle, and Norway has really beaten you to that control area. And Norway were lying 2 behind cover, and Sweden feeling like they really need to give themselves a bit of a space. But Ronnie Persson-Stone achieving neither one nor the other really. There is still a guard out front blocking the anti-clockwise handle, and did not remove either stone in the house either. And Norway quite happy to take advantage of that. They've really found their weight here. Oh boy. Look at that. We have 3 Norwegian stones counting all around the front of that 4 foot circle. Norway responding really well to losing 2 points in that sixth end. Norway lying 3 shots as we get to skip stones in the sixth.
Känns det mycket?
Nej.
Nej, bra.
Du vill ju ha lite över kön.
Bra där.
So looking to Viljo Pettersson-Dahl to get Sweden out of a bit of a pickle here.
Ja, jag med.
Lite inne. Bra. Bra där.
Du måste få touch på den.
7-6.
Oh my. I wouldn't have believed there was a gap big enough to swing a stone through there, and golly, Sweden in all kinds of trouble now. Look at this, that stone was really curling out of hand as soon as he'd thrown it, and rather miraculously finding a gap that I wasn't actually sure was there. Deep breath from Sweden, yeah. They are looking at a hatful now.
Ja. Har du?
Huge chance for Norway in this game.
Ja. Ja, det är tajt.
Ja.
Norway keeping it simple. This is that same stone they've been throwing, that same path. But that one is just dropping short. And Sweden will have another opportunity at that same shot.
Kom igen nu, Viljo. Den har sett du. Kom igen nu.
Bra.
Tror du på isen?
Ja.
Kom igen, då har du den. Sätt den på plats.
Kom igen nu.
Den har du, Viljo.
8.
Du äger den.
Ligger lite inne. Bra där.
Last stone for Sweden in the sixth end, facing 3 Norwegian counters. They tried this stone before. It overcurled. They'll have made that adjustment. And oh boy, take that. Goodness me, pick that out. Oh, I want to see that one again. Goodness, he could not have made any better adjustment. Look at that, facing 3 Norwegian stones. Boom. And all of a sudden, all 3 are gone, and it is Sweden suddenly lying 3 shots. What a turnaround in this end.
Ja, exakt.
Ja, men...
Verkligen.
Snygg.
Ja, det är bra.
Jag må bara dra.
Goodness me, the whole Swedish team gathering around their skip, Viljo Pettersson-Dahl, to say thank you very much for getting us out of a big hole there. Norway probably a little bit shell-shocked with that one. And no easy reply, to be honest, here for Norway.
Ja, men blir straffet hardt seg på dårlig.
That gap. Is that the right ice? That gap is... It's not very big towards the centre. I have an idea they're ignoring the gap at the centre. They're going to have to go around the back of everything and try and grab a piece of the 4-foot circle that way. So the side of the 4-foot circle.
Ja. Det är blankt.
Oh, no. There is space there.
Ja, bra Ole.
Bra Ole.
My mistake, and that's a great shot from Norway, even though they cannot avoid Sweden picking up 1. That was a very difficult shot to stop Sweden picking up 3, but gosh, what a shot from Pettersson-Dahl. Just completely changed that end with 1 shot, but that is a steal for Sweden. And that brings the score after 6 ends. Sweden lead Norway 6 shots to 3.
Vi fortsätter in i det.
De har upp pejleböllingen.
So I think we all need a deep breath after that game. Norway still outpointing or outcounting Sweden with their accuracy points, but Sweden, goodness me, that man, Viljo Pettersson-Dahl, making some clutch shots at absolutely critical times. Huge triple takeout with his last stone in that 6th end. Norway unable to respond to that, and the score going into the 7th end is 6 shots to 3, Sweden leading Norway.
12-3.
Hang.
And that's just going to slip through, but at this stage in the game, and with the score the way it is, Sweden won't mind that too much. Every stone out front is a stone that can actually help Norway. So the tolerance for that shot, we don't want anything short if we're Sweden. So we'd rather the stone goes through the back and out of play rather than landing short and providing a guard that Norway could use. So Norway, 2 ends to go, including this one. Norway 3 shots behind. Norway really need to grab at least 2 shots back in the 7th end. And that's a nice start from Sissel Luken, flag bearer for the Norwegian team at the opening ceremony here in Beijing.
13.
Bra där.
13. 13. Det var ett svart skräp där. Jag ser allt. 13.
Bra.
Kom igen.
You can see the time clocks behind the teams there.
Ja, jag håller med lite där.
The yellow one was ticking down for Sweden, and once that stone's released, then the time clock goes off, so it's a little bit like chess. And once this stone comes to rest, then the opposition clock will start ticking down. But both teams, plenty of time left. Neither team needs to rush their stones. All the teams have really been managing their time clocks pretty well this week. We haven't seen anybody urgently running out of time towards the conclusion.
Gå inn, og så blir en kort, så blir en kort.
Yeah, every stone important here for Norway. This is a good idea. Remember, that area in front of the rings, all of that white area in front of the rings, that's free guard zone until we have played 5 stones. So throwing up a double guard here. Sweden not allowed to remove either of these 2 stones yet. And this is wise from Norway to really try to take advantage fully. That stone's going to slip on, no, but the line was good. That stone tucked in behind that guard.
Dra ner så!
Japp.
Duttar du lite där så fine. Öppna vi där. Annat ner här.
Kör vi på.
12-8.
12-8.
The difference, of course, is that Sweden would be allowed to remove that stone from play. The one just thrown by Cecil Lucan that is actually in the house. And that's why Norway ideally wanted a double guard. But that's a good plan B for Norway.
Ja, satte den bra. Okay.
And you can see what a nice stone that was from Cecil Lucan. Difficult for Sweden to reach. That red stone tucked nicely in behind that guard. Sweden do make contact, but not enough to really help the situation. In fact, I think that red is now even better angled behind the guard there. Norway need to build on that for the next 6 stones. Really important that Norway can pick up 2 points at least with their last stone advantage in the 7th end. Only 1 end to come after this. That's fine from Norway. That stone at the front there is not out counting the Swedish stone towards the back of the rings, but that's the important part. That Swedish stone is already behind T-line, the yellow one. So if you push that stone, it just gets further away from the centre. Whereas that stone just thrown by Norway, it's just inside the front of the rings, and if you push that stone from Norway, that's going to get closer to the rings. So nice result there for Geir Arne Skogstad.
Okay.
But free guard zone is finished. Sweden are now allowed to remove opposition stones. So he's clipped out his own there. But nevertheless, that's removed the guard out front. The guard was the dangerous shot for Sweden. You only need 1 guard and you can pile a whole heap of stones behind it. So a little bit unlucky to catch his own on the way out. But unlikely that stone would have become important for Sweden. It's the Norwegian stones that are ahead of T-line. Those are the dangerous stones. Norway already lying 2. And what they need to do is, again, consolidate that position. Important is that they don't leave Sweden with a double takeout, that they could remove 2 stones at once. And that's exactly what they do. They're just going to punch that stone forward right onto T-line. Good stuff from Norway. 2 nice stones from Geir Arne Skogstad.
Bra.
The angles are nevertheless possible for a double takeout. Sweden may as well try.
Kom igen.
Should remove at least one.
Bra.
Yeah, that's real classic wheelchair throwing setup.
Bra då nu.
Okay.
Thrower preparing, teammate behind. That's Matsola Engborg holding the wheels for Ronny Persson.
7-6! Bra Ronny!
So that he doesn't slip, he's nice and stable while he's throwing.
Okay.
And you saw Kristina Olander with her stopwatch there.
Jag kan gå på insidan med.
You will hear the players communicating constantly through the game how long the stone takes to travel from one end to the other. We typically measure between the two hog lines, those thick horizontal red lines.
Nilla.
And the amount of time the stone takes to travel between those two lines. That's good information for both teams about how the ice is playing. So how hard do you need to throw this stone for it to reach tee line, or for it to reach front of house, or for it to remove another stone? And you'll hear the players constantly calling to each other how fast the stone's going. So the stone crosses that hog line, you hear the team communicating what was the timing on that stone, how long did it take to pass between those two hog lines. Just to see how the ice is playing, and also for your own consistency as well. So Norway still have a nice setup here.
Ja, med tanke på förra så.
Förra var där.
Ja. Pröva det. Ja, jag håller med.
Där ja.
Sen är jag fart.
Our local fans having fun cheering the Chinese team.
Yeah, ready.
Really enjoying a really interesting game out here. An all Scandinavian game, Norway playing Sweden. Typically in all disciplines of curling, a Norway-Sweden matchup is always fun to watch.
Kom igen då.
Bra.
Det är så lite.
Bra Ronny!
Great effort from Ronny Persson. The angle just that bit more difficult with his second stone than with the first. The first red stone here just a little bit further forward, making the angle a bit tougher. Not far off making it. Third thrower, Jostein Stordal for Norway. That stone curling away from the centre line. Here we are, just across the centre line. Now it's curling away from the centre. And you might say, oh, that's not very good. It's curling the wrong way. But the reason that is a really nice shot from Norway is because that's keeping Sweden busy away from the centre. What Norway doesn't want is that Sweden could somehow get a stone either closer to the centre than Norway already has, or if they would just put a stone somewhere close to the centre, that could block that scoring area for Norway. And that's why Norway chose to play that stone curling away from the centre. That keeps Sweden busy over there. Harder for Sweden to block up the path in the centre. And typically we wouldn't want a stone behind tee line, as we said. But that means the double takeout is almost impossible for Sweden, because that red stone is a bit further behind its partner now. Canny play from Norway. Clever stuff.
8-6.
That plan working nicely for Norway. Sweden not able to make a double takeout. Sweden not able to roll towards the centre. Norway working really hard to get at least 2 shots back here in the 7th end.
8-5.
8-5.
Nice and safe.
8-5.
This is the setup shot coming with Ole Fredrik Siversen with his first stone in the 7th end. Only one stone left for Sweden. Important that Norway sets this up well. Don't give Sweden a chance to make a double takeout. And give Norway themselves a chance to score 2 with final stone. They would have really liked that to, well, to roll in either direction, honestly. Either a roll towards the centre and have both of them behind cover would be nice, or a roll towards the side to again keep Sweden away from the possibility of a double takeout at the moment. There's definitely a double takeout, and of course this man's up for his big flashy takeouts today. We just saw him make a phenomenal triple in the 6th end, so his confidence should be high for a double takeout here.
Kom igen då.
7-5.
Yeah, Viljo Pettersen Dahl crushing Norway hopes all by himself out there just now. And again, just that half shot from Ole Fredrik Siversen. He needed his stone to roll either in behind that centre cover a little bit, or roll away to the other side towards the edge of the rings. And unfortunately, he set up the angle for big hitting Viljo Pettersen Dahl. So Norway, after all that work, they were looking really good to score 2 shots in this 7th end. But stone placement's so important. You can't leave those easy angles at this level. And Norway, unfortunately now, can only score 1 point with their last stone here in the 7th. And he does that really beautifully. 1 point to Norway, but that's a bit of a missed opportunity for Norway. They did all the hard work, but didn't quite set it up with their 7th stone. And that's just 1 point to grab back in the deficit. Sweden still leading Norway 6 shots to 4 after 7. There's our game summary, and it's one of those peculiar games where you are indeed outplaying your opposition. Norway setting themselves up well, they're setting up the ends well, they're finding good shots, but that man, Viljo Pettersen Dahl, he is just making that crunch shot with his last stone, and Norway only managing to pick up 1 in that 7th end. Sweden lead 6 shots to 4. Eighth and final end, or is it, in our featured game between Norway and Sweden? It is Sweden who have last stone in this 8th end. They are plus 2 points. They lead Norway 6 shots to 4. Norway need to steal 2 points. Norway have to score 2 points, even though they don't have that last stone advantage. Tough ask for Norway, but as we've seen in the overall game summary, they have actually been out shooting Sweden largely. But just at critical points, Viljo Pettersen Dahl making some huge shots to get his team out of trouble, and Norway not quite setting themselves up. And that isn't a mistake from Sweden. That was on purpose. Christina Olander just throwing that stone through. As we've seen, really any stone in play is helpful for Norway. Certainly a guard out front helps Norway, so that's the last thing that Sweden want. But even a stone in the house, that's a stone that Norway could freeze up to, hide in behind. And that's why Sweden just threw that stone away. They threw it through the back of the house. Norway need every stone to count here in this 8th end. They need to score 2, steal 2 in fact. They don't have last stone advantage. Those 2 stones then from Sitsaluchen. They're protected by free guard zones still.
Ja, det blir väldigt bra.
Ja.
Ja, kom igen.
Now, don't worry, Sweden know that. They know that these stones cannot go out of play, but they can move them around. They would love to just remove them from the centre line, bump them more towards the side.
Rätt marginal.
Norway will be watching closely here. If that stone goes out of play, it has gone out of play, and that is a free guard zone violation. So everything gets put back how it was before.
Remove that.
And the false stone, the Swedish one, that gets removed, just like that. Yeah. And it's worth having a go at that stone. It's a very difficult shot to move that red stone without sending it out of play. It's a difficult shot, but it's worth having a go. The only other thing Sweden would do would be, again, to just throw that stone through the back. So no harm done. You may as well have a try. So a little bit of good luck for Norway there. Sweden attempting what we call a tick shot. They're just trying to tick one of those reds away from the centre line, but not out of play. Difficult stuff, a tick shot, and not coming off for Sweden. So Norway need to use that to their full advantage here. Norway having to steal 2 points here without last stone. This looks nice from Geir Anders Kogstad. That is nice stuff, but that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stones thrown. Free guard zone is finished. And Sweden can now remove these stones from play.
Fokus, Moe. Det är din det här.
Åtta, Moe!
Kom igen. Noggrannhet. Ja. 8! Kom igen. Hela vägen.
Bra! Ja då, kändes bra.
Ja då.
Jättebra, Moe!
7-4, bra Moe!
And that's fine from Mats-Ola Engborg. Step by step. Sweden have last stone advantage and they're already +2 shots. So they don't need anything fancy here. They just need to keep it fairly straightforward, Sweden. Just keep removing Norwegian stones. Give Julio Pettersson Dahl a bit of space with his last stone, and that should be enough to push this game over the line. Norway, they need to try to get their stones in as difficult positions as possible so that it's hard for Sweden to remove stones.
Yep.
And they're currently piling all their guards up one on top of the other and tempting Sweden into making a double takeout from both of those guards. But again, as long as Sweden make sure they remove one guard cleanly, that's okay for now.
Känns lite tajtare.
Just a little bit tighter. And that's a mistake from Sweden. You heard them say it was a little bit tighter. just catching a bit more curl, that stone. So that does leave actually 2 guards still out front, and Norway sensibly calling a timeout. Norway have 1 stone in the house behind those 2 guards. And they will have a 1-minute timeout, which will start when their coach arrives to give advice. Neither team used their timeout yet. It often happens in an important and/or complicated situation like this. As soon as one team has their timeout, the other one does as well. Let's see what Peter Dahlman has to say.
Så, vänta så länge som möjligt med att dra runt. Så lägg den där så ryker det, så lägg upp nya garder.
Lägger mitt emellan sträckarna.
Ja.
Ja, hvis dere tar det
Nära
samtidig, så er det
biten.
greit at den ligger på streken.
Ja. Du får ha plats så du kommer förbi dem.
Ja. Du får full torkfot.
Får du en biter så gör det ingenting.
Ja, har mye å stå
Kjør
på.
opp, så bare knipe inn litt tid.
Det är bra, Ole.
So relatively straightforward by the sound of it. My Norwegian not fluent, but looking like the team didn't even need the full 1-minute discussion with their coach. Of course, they won't just be thinking about this shot. Norway will be thinking, we need 2 points. Sweden have last stone. How do we do it? We've got 4 shots left. If we played this, then Sweden will try that. Then we will play this. That's what the team will have been discussing. Not only this stone, but trying to think their way through to the last stones in this end. And that's exactly what Norway need. Oh, keep going, keep going. Oh, I thought that was just going to be in front of house, and that was exactly what Norway needed. They needed a second counter in there, but ahead of T-line. But that's not bad from Jostein Stordal. Sweden, as we said, Sweden are just going to methodically keep removing stones. They don't need to do anything complex. They just need to make sure Norway can't get their 2 points, actually. And Norway could still have a chance to use that stone just thrown. They may be able to punch that forward later on.
Kom igen.
Ligger lite tight.
Ja, jag håller med.
Okay.
7-5.
And that's fine from Ronnie Persson. He has reduced the guard count by 1. And those guards pretty far apart. That yellow guard now pretty far up on our screen, and that means there's a good amount of space for another stone to curl around it. That's a nice angle. There's really plenty of space on this nice curly ice. That's where the name comes from, that the stone is curling in towards the centre. And a good amount of space for another stone. So Norway, again, they need to use every stone out front there. Doesn't matter that that's now a yellow guard instead of a red one. And they'll be going for the same kind of shot, I think, from Stordal.
Bra, Jostein.
4-7.
Bra det.
I'm not sure if they wanted another guard or if they really wanted that stone into the rings, into the house.
Yep.
But again, another
Det ligger
guard.
ganska långt ifrån, så du måste ha ett ganska tjockt träff om vi ska få mer. Så har vi bara
Another guard is absolutely fine for a plan B for Norway. They need stones in play. They need guards out front to hide behind to make it hard for Sweden to remove. The best Norway can do is be lying 2 Norwegian counters, 2 red stones, and hope that Sweden miss. Even if Norway play 8 stones perfectly, they still need a miss from Sweden, otherwise they cannot steal this end, they cannot score points. if Sweden make their stones.
Det är bra.
7-5.
Bra. Japp.
That's nice again from Ronnie Persson. Pretty close to getting 2 guards moving there. But now I think Norway are going to have to come into the house.
Ja, här är ideellt.
Yeah, that same path they just threw.
Ja, 3.
3.
There is a risk to putting your first stones through the house, like we saw Sweden do at the beginning of this 8th end. And the risk is if your opposition play 8 for 8 stones perfectly, and Norway have found 6 good spots for their stones so far, the risk is that, yeah, you could be facing a couple with your last stones. There are different options rather than throwing stones through. If you throw your stones through, then you have to make sure you clear out the centre. And because of the added level of difficulty in wheelchair curling, that can be more of a challenge. Remember, you're having to make all those big hits with only upper body strength and nobody sweeping. This is good for Norway. Just overrun slightly, but they'll be very happy with that, though. Those 2 Norwegian stones buried in behind those guards.
Time.
And as we often see in a complex and or important end, both teams end up using their timeout in quick succession, and this is a good idea to call the Swedish coach. 2 stones to come for Sweden, only 1 for Norway. But Norway currently are lying the 2 stones they need
Du tänker slå
to go to extra end.
med bo, eller tänker du för att tugga här?
What's the best thing for Sweden to do here? Let's see what their coach has to say.
Försöker komma runt, för vi har den är ändå...
Tuggar du där öppnar du ändå. Ja.
Alternativet är att vi dunkar ner den där.
Ja.
Men är det inte lättare med 10 fart än pila ner den? Ja, jag vet.
Han är sugen på?
Jag vet inte. Klära den här känns ju ganska bra.
Ja.
Men frågan är om vi bara ska gå på en ren clear på den eller om vi ska försöka komma med någon tag och komma runt eventuellt.
En tag gör du?
Jag tycker en ren clearing är
Ja,
bra.
det är
För
bra.
Bort med den, så måste de jobba med att lägga tillbaka garden. Då har vi draget sen. Eller en liten lång dragning. Det beror på vilken fart du känner att du vill ha där. Men bort med den där så behöver de lägga tillbaka garden. Och så går vi på den på sista.
Okej.
Yes.
Ja.
Spelar du 8 då?
Långt och fint.
Ja.
Härifrån eller?
Again, another very business-like timeout with Peter Narup.
Vad har du haft på grabbarna då?
The coach from Sweden, Peter Narup, played for a long time in the hugely successful rink with Pia Lindholm. Lindholm, he's been the director for curling in China leading up to these games.
Den har du. Kom igen nu, William. Det är din.
I think Narup and Lindholm's rink world champion about 3 times.
Bra.
So he knows what he's doing. And yeah, I'll tell you what you don't want to do is ignore those guards out front. And indeed, if you remove this guard, then whatever Norway do with their last shot, you will have a chance to score 1. Just like that.
Ja.
Det som vi pekar på, det är väl den.
Ja. Det är perfekt med frysa. Ska du frysa? Ja. Okay.
Still a couple of options for Norway. They could try to replace that guard and force Pettersson-Dahl to draw right on top of those 2 stones there. They could draw another one into the house. They don't really want it to sit on top of those 2 that are already there. Otherwise, again, Pettersson-Dahl, he will just play on top of those. And he only needs to pop it back a few centimetres and deny Norway their 2.
Japp, ja, väldigt spännande.
I think putting a stone, we would say top of the 8 foot, that means in the front rings, in the 8 foot circle, the white one, right in front of where those 2 reds already are. That is exactly where the best position for this stone would be.
Ja, bra
looking
fart.
a bit chunky.
Paula!
Kommer
So, not bad from Norway, but as we said, he doesn't really want it all the way up to those other reds because now Peterson Dahl has an open target. He just needs to make sure Norway are not scoring 2. And those stones nicely lined up. If he just hits that first stone on the nose, right in the middle, that should just about do it. But remember, objective for this stone is we don't want Norway scoring 2. Sweden doesn't need to score here. It doesn't matter what happens to the Swedish stone as long as Norway doesn't score 2.
Hela vägen. Kom igen nu. Det är din.
Final stone at least in the 8th end.
Bra.
Is he around the guard? He certainly is. Oh boy, but that curled a little bit too much. And Norway do score 2. So we shall have bonus curling here in this session. Norway doing just enough to get a mistake from Sweden. Norway do steal 2 points in that 8th end. Scores are tied after 8. It's 6 shots each and we shall have an extra end.
Det är bra.
So there's the story of this game. Slightly unusual story there. Norway have been really out shooting Sweden. Sweden struggling a little bit to take advantage of setting up ends, but their skip Viljo Peterson Dahl having some just magnificent shots today, but couldn't quite do enough to prevent Norway stealing a big 2 points in the 8th end there, tying up the scores at 6 shots each, and we shall have an extra end here in this round robin session of the wheelchair curling at Paralympic Winter Games in Beijing. The good news for Sweden is that they have the last stone advantage in this extra end. And tactically, extra ends are extremely straightforward. Somebody has to score 1, that's it. And there is a very classic way of doing that. But oh no! Oh, that's very unlucky for Norway. That's a big mistake at this stage in the game from Sissel Luchen.
Niklas!
Niklas!
Kom igen.
That stone not getting over the line, the hog line, the thick red horizontal line. And not making it into play. And that's a huge advantage already for Sweden.
Bra, Kiki.
Bra.
And Sweden again electing to deliberately throw that stone through. It's a slightly interesting idea. The other option for Sweden would be to just draw a stone to the wings, to the sides of the sheet. And that can be an insurance shot for later. There's no risk really to just putting a stone on the wings.
Ja.
It is Sweden who has last stone here. And unfortunately for Sissel Luchen, she has overcorrected that.
Come in.
Norway needed to use that free guard zone. They needed their stones in that area ahead of the rings. Maybe just a little bit of nerves from Sissel Luchen in this extra end. Very important game for both teams. Sweden can all but qualify for semi-final if they win here, and Norway, they can't really afford to lose another game. Yeah, that's what I would like to see, is indeed a stone in the rings, but away from the centre for Norway. For Sweden. A bit of an insurance shot there for Sweden. But really advantage Sweden here now in this extra end. Costly misses for Norway. They needed those two first shots in the free guard zone that Sweden not allowed to remove from play, but one stone not making it into play and one stone slipping into the house, and Sweden are allowed to remove that from play. And that is the 5th stone thrown. That is the end of free guard zone, and we are going to see Sweden hit for home from here. And now Norway, they need to really just hope for a mistake from Sweden. And a mistake would be catching this guard at the wrong angle and leaving a stone out front. So not cleanly removing this guard and rolling away yourself and leaving a stone out front. That's what Norway have to hope for from here.
Bra. Lite tight igen tycker jag. Ja då, den håller nog. Ja, det är bra. Fortsätter bara.
Sweden need to keep their nerve as well.
Bra Moe, fin sten.
That kind of shot looks easy, but at this critical stage in an important game, not straightforward. No shot is easy at this stage in a game, but Mats-Ola Engborg taking a big step to pushing this game over the line for Sweden.
Ja.
Norway not really giving themselves a chance to set up difficult shots for Sweden with not setting up their first 2 stones correctly. And again, making Sweden's life a little bit easy here. That stone should also have been short. Norway's really only chance, unless Sweden make a huge mistake, Norway's really only chance is to get a mistake, or let me start again. Norway's best chance to get a mistake from Sweden is by Norway throwing a guard and Sweden getting the angle wrong on that guard. But if stones are slipping into the house, that really makes Sweden's life quite straightforward. Yeah, that's fine. If that had been a guard and Sweden had hit it on the nose, then there would still be a guard. But now there's simply 2 Swedish stones in the house. Job done for Mats-Ola Engborg. He's allowed his lunch after the game. He's earned it. Level of difficulty for Norwegian stones getting higher and higher.
Ja.
Norway now trying to use that Swedish stone in the front rings and sneak a stone in behind it, trying to use that stone as some kind of guard. Or a freeze also works. But not really one or the other. And yeah, we see Sweden just methodically removing these Norwegian stones. Again, the best Norway can hope for is that Sweden don't get the right angle here and just drive that red back onto the yellow. Leave that red lying around. But to be honest, even if Norway does get that kind of a mistake from Sweden,
Det sting.
The situation is fairly straightforward. There's not a lot of stones in play, and it is Sweden who have last stone advantage. And if he has to, we've seen Viljo Pettersson make a couple of clutch draws already in this game, and he will have space to do so. So that's exactly what Norway could only hope for. That is a mistake from Sweden. Is he just catching that angle wrong? That he wanted that stone to curl a little bit more and punch that red through the gap. So that's a little bit of luck for Norway.
Ja, 5. Det är 5.
5 blank.
5.
Yeah.
It's very quiet out there. The other game's not going to extra end, so this is the only game still out there. And sometimes just that quietness can feel a little bit unnerving as well, when you feel like all eyes are on you and there are no more games on. That's a great shot from Norway, really nice.
Spel på den, va?
Ja, så i princip hela 90 i alla fall. Kom igen.
All Norway can do is give themselves a chance.
Ja, jag är med.
8, va?
Norway just trying to set themselves up. The best they can do is have their stone lying shot closest to the middle when that man in your picture comes to play his last stone.
Kom igen nu. Det är
And I often tell the teams if I'm coaching that you really play 7 stones to lead up to the 8th. In some way, all ends can be described like that. Everything is leading up to that final stone, and both the teams know it.
Sista. Ja. Det är bra. Det är bra.
Bra, Ronny!
Bra!
That is good from Ronny Persson, but I might have liked to see Sweden go for the double take out there, because that stone for Norway is still quite dangerous. See, he's relieved that his stones are done. He just feathers that first red. Sigh of relief there. And only skip stones to come. So another timeout for Norway. If we have an extra end, the clock resets. Both the teams get 6 minutes thinking time, and both teams get an additional timeout. So you don't have to save up time on your clock in case it looks like an extra end is coming. Everything resets, and whether you used your timeout or not, during the 8 ends you have 1 timeout in the extra end. And of course we're now playing away from the court, so it takes him a minute to get there. That was easy. Those two yellow Swedish stones on the right of our screen, unlikely to really figure, as we said, those are really insurance shots. So that's if Sweden's final stone doesn't quite work out, one of those stones might save them. But they're unlikely to come into play, and Norway, nothing to do with those yellow stones. There's nothing for them to gain by working with any of those yellow stones. They need to keep focused towards the centre.
Detta.
Ja.
First of the 4th thrower stones for Norway. This is Ole Fredrik Siversen. And he's got the line pretty nice.
Härifrån tänker jag. Ja. 8.
Lite sidare.
Där.
That stone had good direction, but there's definitely a double takeout opportunity here. He wanted those stones a little further apart, either swinging that stone all the way in behind the stone already in the rings, or really dropping that stone a bit shorter.
Hur långt är det emellan? Ja, är det en halv meter eller vad är det?
But the closer the stones are together, the easier it is to remove them both at once.
Ja.
Bra. Ligger ute där. Bra.
And we've seen Filio Pettersson Dahl remove a whole heap of stones already in this game. And
Ganska mycket.
big opportunity here that he could remove both of these Norwegian stones with one shot.
Bit inne. Bra.
Ja, kom igen.
Gets one of them.
Fin sten.
Similar situation as we had before. Skip stones there. One stone each to come in this extra end in featured game Norway against Sweden. Gosh, we've had hundreds of good encounters between Norway and Sweden teams over the years in all curling disciplines. Two of the strongest nations in curling terms. And this encounter proving to be a real tasty one as well. So same idea for Norway, but this time they need to be lying short. At the end of this stone, it must be Norway who lies short, or the insurance stone on the left will already win the game for Sweden. Huge shot for Ole Fredrik Siversen. He hasn't done much wrong this game. It's just Filio Pettersson Dahl has just come up with some real peaches at exactly the right times.
3-7.
Oh, is it going to make it? It is not. So Sweden don't need to throw their last stone. They've done enough. They've had some hard-fought wins this week, Sweden, but they keep marching on. That is a win in the extra end for Sweden. It's finally 2 stones. It doesn't really matter how many. See, these teams know each other well. Norway congratulating Sweden on a very hard-fought win. You can see the relief on Sweden's face. That was a tough one. But confirmation there, an extra end win for Team Sweden. They defeat Norway 8 shots to 6.
瑞典队8 ，C 赛道爱沙尼亚队2，韩国队5 ，D 赛道中国队7，斯洛伐克队5。
Ladies and gentlemen, the Beijing Organizing Committee for the 2022 Olympic and Paralympic Winter Games sincerely thanks all technical officials, staff, and volunteers for their outstanding efforts.
女士们、先生们，北京2022年冬奥会和冬残奥会组织委员会感谢所有技术官员、工作人员和志愿者们的辛苦付出。
Let's give them a round of applause.
请和我们一起将掌声送给他们。
That concludes this morning's competition. Thanks for watching and for your active participation. Please follow the instructions of our staff on your way out. And make sure to pick up your trash and belongings. Thanks for your cooperation.
Disappointment for Norway. They really need to win the rest of their games now. Confirmation of that final result. It is a win for Sweden, 8 shots to 6 over Norway.
谢谢您的合作。
What does that do to the table? As we said, Sweden marching on. They have just about guaranteed one more win and they will be qualified for semi-finals. Big loss there for Norway. They can't really afford to lose anymore. They will want to be winning the rest of their games from here to the end of the round robin to try to qualify. And they're the story of the game, a slightly strange one. Norway really out-hitting and out-throwing Sweden for much of the time, but Sweden coming up with some real fabulous shots at critical times. So a traditionally tasty lineup in the curling world. Norway and Sweden, two real giants of the game. This Norwegian team, silver medalist last time in 2018 against China. And this Swedish team, very up and coming. They've won a bronze, followed by a silver at World Wheelchair Championships. And the game certainly didn't disappoint. Norway definitely had the best start. They jumped out the blocks nice and strong. But Sweden steadied the ship a bit. And it was all square going into half-time, but a real heartbreaking shot for Norway. A huge triple takeout in the sixth end from Swedish skip Viljo Pettersson-Dahl, really breaking Norwegian hearts, and Norway struggling to find the shots back, managing to get it to an extra end, but Sweden playing really nice stuff in the extra end and overcoming Norway 8 points to 6. So Sweden still top the table, Norway needing to win the rest of their games.